Welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture Podcast. I'm Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about 2019's Satanic Panic.
Thank you so much for listening to us. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you decide to listen to us on.
Oh, right. And as I said, this is the 2019 Satanic Panic. There's another Satanic Panic out there in the universe. It is not good. Don't waste your time and money like we did.
We didn't waste money on it. It's available on Amazon Prime, and it's a student film. We watched like 15 minutes of it before we were like, is this the movie that we wanted to watch? Because this isn't good.
It was so dry and boring.
And overacted. Like that one guy was just overacting. It was bad.
It was just bad. Yep.
Anyway, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we're going to be talking about the loss of control and what that has to do with horror movies as a whole. Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go ahead and talk about how honoring virginity is kind of weird.
And then we're going to give you our saints of the show.
And then finally, of course, we'll give you our contact information. So if you would like, you can go ahead and reach out to us.
And again, don't forget to reach out and give us that 5-star review and subscription on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on.
Yep, we'll greatly appreciate it.
So let's jump into our review and summary. Also, don't forget, spoiler alerts for 2019 Satanic Panic.
I think they get it by now.
Yes. I really don't want people to watch that other one.
Yeah. Got to save them from that torture that we had to go through.
Yes. Summarize this movie. A love letter to 1980s and 1990s B horror movies. Well, when the Satanic Panic was at its zenith in pop culture. And the fact that, we still kind of believe that high society are worshiping Satan for some reason. Anyway, we return to that era with this movie, and this movie is about that, and sacrificing a virgin to not Satan, but one of the demonic lords of hell that is going to give everybody wealth.
All right, that was kind of a weird review, or a weird summary, but all right. It worked.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail, give you a little bit more context in the story itself. So we meet Sam. She has a job. She's a pizza delivery lady. She goes, she delivers a pizza. She walks into this weird satanic party. They're like, you a virgin? And she's just like, that's a personal question. They're like, you are. They chase after her. She meets friends along the way. She ends up on an altar. And then people die.
Along the way, Jerry O'Connell is Jerry O'Connell.
Yep.
And is just weird and creepy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's done anything really good since Sliders. Like, I loved Sliders, and he was the main actor in Sliders.
I know you and your love of Sliders. Not only the TV show, but also the food.
Yes, I do love hamburgers. Just tiny hamburgers.
Yes, they know what sliders are.
Just in case anybody doesn't know.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was like, growing up, my sister, who is 4 years older than me, used to have parties around Halloween time and invite all of her friends for kind of a sleepover. And they would just watch like just all of these bad horror movies, like The Wasp Woman or anything else like that, just kind of like really bad horror movies. And this movie just is kind of like a love letter to those movies. And I really enjoyed it for that whole kind of comedic value of it. And it didn't take itself too seriously, but it did have a lot to say. And it kind of went back to the same themes, but modernized them in a way. I thought it was well done, and it doesn't get enough recognition.
All right. You really liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that I'm, lukewarm to the movie. I don't hate it. I don't necessarily love it, But, maybe next year, if we have some extra time to fill during the spooky season, I'd watch it again, just as a filler. Mm-hmm. But, I'm not going to go out and, rent this movie again. Just because I want to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Like, if it's out there.
Yeah. If it's out there to consume and it's free, maybe I'll watch it again.
Yeah. We rented it this time.
We did rent it.
Full disclosure. After we watched 15 minutes of the free one.
Oh my gosh. Don't.
So, I really want to talk about the loss of control that goes along with a lot of horror movies. The genre is kind of filled with this idea that loss of control kind of does frighten people, and, rightly so. I think a lot of us, especially millennials, and I can only speak for millennials because I am one, really struggle with this idea that loss of control kind of, is a thing that we need to fear, and that we're, never going to be able to control our lives. I mean, there's multiple articles out there that really kind of define what millennials are doing and what millennials can and can't do. So I think this is kind of prevalent for a lot of us who are millennials, and our loss of control. We can't control our finances. We can't control the way the world is, but the way that, there are kind of elites, the way that our environment is going. There's a lot of things that are out of our control. And so this fits in so well with this movie and the horror movie genre as a whole, primarily because of that.
Who do you think is lost control?
Millennials.
No, I mean in the movie.
Oh, and that's what I was just going to get into.
All right, you're welcome.
Even though Sam isn't necessarily a millennial, and even though she is called a millennial over the course of the movie, because she is, 21, 22 in this movie, which if you're 21, 22, that means that you're not a millennial.
No, you're a Gen
Z.
Gen Z, yep.
Yes. The millennial cutoff is, I think, right before the 90s, like right around beginning of the 90s. It's more or less coming of age around the turn of the millennium. So most of us are in our 30s. Some of us are turning 40 soon, or this next year. It starts at 1980 and goes through like 1995, I believe it is. But then again, there's different takes on that. Anyway, but Sam really, the control of her finances, the control of her health, and these are different things that I really want to kind of look at for Sam, especially because, like at the very beginning of the movie, she has to give over her $5 as a deposit for the bags, and she's like, "Well, I need that for gas," and that gas kind of is taken away, like her control of that is taken away when she does that long distance delivery. Mm-hmm. And this puts her in this position where she has to go in, has to ask for tips because she doesn't have gas. She can't leave without it. Mm-hmm. This sets up the plot of the movie. A little bit later on, she is talking with Judy about her health and about why she writes those songs and about Australia, and that it's, kind of about that boy that she felt like she abandoned. And, she felt out of control in that because of her health. And she's like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to that place where I was out of control. It's that sense of not feeling in control that I think we all resonate as, it's terrifying. Mm-hmm. So what makes you feel out of control, and how does that feel to you?
Well, I think I can say quite positively that nobody likes feeling out of control. Well, some people like the adrenaline of certain things.
Yeah.
Where you're out of control. But generally speaking, normal day-to-day life stuff, most people don't like the feeling of being out of control. The things that make me feel out of control are when big things happen in our lives that cause some financial burden.
All right.
Like car problems or house problems, that kind of stuff. Oh, medical bills also make me feel like I've lost control.
Which both play into Sam's financial situation.
Yeah. Gosh, our medical system needs some major overhaul, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I would have to say that those are the major things. Anything money-wise that is big ticket items that I can't plan for in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that too. Especially, because they happened to us at the same time because we're married. Like our washing machine and dryer going out at the same time and having to get a brand new ones. Our roof, pretty much needing to replace our roof. All of these things, like finances, are a huge stressor, and especially for us millennials, because we're not making the same type of money that our parents, our older siblings are making. Mm-hmm. Primarily because of inflation, the way that the cost of living has gone up and wages have stagnated since the 90s, something like that?
Yeah.
80s?
No, I think it's closer to the 90s because I remember thinking, I know like talking about wages was pretty taboo. It's still pretty taboo. And it shouldn't be because that's how they keep us down. Anyway, I'm not going to get on that tangent. So I remember hearing that my dad was, it was like in the mid 90s, and he had just gotten a raise, and he was making a 35 a year. Mm-hmm. And that was a pretty, not like super fancy, but it was a very comfortable wage for that time.
Oh yeah.
Probably like lower middle class. And now if you're making 35 and you're single, there's no way like in our situation, if we just had $35,000 a year come in, period, like there's no way that we'd be able to do anything.
No, that's almost poverty line right now. It's like the cost of living in most places. I was just marveling at the cost of chips. A bag of chips at the grocery store costs like $5 now.
What?
I know. When I came home and I said this out loud to you, you were like just kind of like ignoring me. But I was like, this is why? All of a sudden, it's like $5 for a bag of chips. I remember that only being like $1.
That's so crazy. At least Arizona tea will always be $1.
That's true.
We can
print it on a label.
Mm-hmm, we can take that into we can take that to heart. That Arizona tea will never change.
Arizona tea will always be $1. Mm-hmm. Even though I think Peace Tea, wherever they still sell it now, is like $2-3. Like a bottle of pop is like $2 now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember in my day, you can get a can of pop for 50 cents.
A can of pop for 50 cents? I remember it was like 25 cents.
Boy, you're old.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of the older millennials. Mm-hmm. So this is another thing that plays into it is that loss of control, and especially to those who are elites. Those who, in our society, we view as elites are the people who have a lot of money and live in these neighborhoods that the satanic cult is kind of a part of. This whole trope of having these others that they needed to cheat to get ahead. And this is kind of what Judy is telling Sam at one point. She's saying, how do you think that they stayed rich? How do you think that they stayed like this? How do you think they afforded these houses? Is because they were part of this coven, this witch satanic group that, cheated to get ahead.
Well, and we can also draw parallels between, well, not necessarily satanic groups, but there are multiple societies that are only privy to wealthy people that you can be a part of. And I'm not like being a conspiracy theorist. Like, it's true. Like,
you keep stealing my points before I'm making them.
I'm sorry. All right. Just think of them as segues.
Yeah.
Take it away, Miguel.
Speaking of, if you haven't yet seen the docu-series on Netflix called The Family, you should. Basically, the conservative evangelical, I don't like calling it a cult yet until they have achieved cult status. But
that group that they had, though, does do culty things.
Cultish behaviors.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. If it walks like a duck. So a lot of those things they're very similar to satanic panic. You see these people who are high up in society, the upper echelons, the elites. Like in The Family, you saw that it was a lot of politicians, a lot of people who were higher up in power, like the president of Uganda, like these like high power positions are part of this. And I think this is a little bit crumbling now. I think now that people are aware of it. And
there is the I always called it Build-A-Bear. It's not Build-A-Bear.
Yeah, it's Bilderberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not Build-A-Bear Workshop.
Yeah.
But that's another group too.
That's one of those groups that John Ronson, he's actually written a book about them called Them. Fantastic book. Pick it up. He tries to demystify a lot of these secret groups. But that's one of them that people have conspiracy theories about, how they're the lizard people, the Illuminati.
See, I don't think that they're lizard people.
Yeah.
I do think that they are a bunch of rich white guys who get together and like throw weird parties on the weekends.
We could see even the struggle for power and struggle for control was a part of the group. You saw this with Gypsy and trying to take over a lot, trying to, assert her own authority, assert her own vision for the group. And I think this is, the power dynamic that plays within a lot of these groups and a lot of companies that you work for is that there are people who are just competitive, that everything is a competition to them, even though it's not. We're all just struggling to try to get by. We're all human beings. And that's one of the big things about, I think, imposter syndrome probably is run rampant in the millennial generation.
Yeah.
That we're all just thinking, oh, I can never do this. I can never be, get ahead like this person because I'm not like that.
And then also too, there's that subgroup of people who think they deserve like leadership roles. And clearly if they were in leadership roles, it would just collapse. Gypsy.
Yeah.
There's the gypsies out there.
Yeah, there's these people who, it's kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect. The people who believe that they are most capable at a job usually are the ones that are not at all capable.
Yep.
Speaking of which, how do you see this playing out now in our society? Are there any big examples of people who are in leadership and they had to cheat to get to where they were?
Are you wanting me to take the obvious approach and say the Cheeto?
I'm not wanting you to take any approach. I'm just wanting you to answer the question.
Well, I would say that just generally speaking, many CEOs have family members who are also CEOs. And those positions do tend to be passed around to family and friends that they know of. We actually are very lucky to work in a company whose CEO isn't part of that, group. She actually started at, seriously an entry-level job and worked her way up, which is something that you don't hear about at all anymore.
Even though that's the American dream.
It is the American dream, but it's very hard to achieve.
Well, yeah, I think after 2008, that whole idea of being a self-made millionaire working from the bottom and getting to the top is non-existent.
Well, and let's be real. Not everybody can do that. If everybody was able to, get in at the bottom and work their way to the top, there would be nobody at the bottom.
Exactly.
So it's the dream not only is not achievable, it's unrealistic.
For more on this, check out our episode on Us.
Yes.
Even though I really don't like my voice in that one. Like, I went back and listened to it, and I was like, what is wrong with me? So we did talk about how Us is about the American dream and a lot of that, how it's kind of dead.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is kind of the obvious approach. But I also feel like it's part of our culture now. Part of our culture is that we need to tear other people down to get ahead. We need to cheat in order to succeed in life. And that's, I think, the lesson that we're being taught by the current administration of our country. And a lot of current administrations of a lot of countries. I think the Prime Minister of Britain or of the UK is being ousted right now, but he was also very much like the USA, where you had a person who was not very good at leadership, like very much the Dunning-Kruger effect in person format, has taken over a country.
Yeah.
So I think this is not just us, but a lot of people across the world are dealing with leadership having to cheat to get ahead.
Well, and, just a woman perspective on this, it's very common now we're trying to change the culture right now, especially a lot of us millennial women, like we're very into building each other up and taking as many women as we can along for the ride as we ourselves climb the ladder. But for a while there, especially like in the 80s and the 90s, it was seen that there can only be one woman on the board. Mm-hmm. There can only be one woman in management. And so those positions were that's kind of where we got our like catty, like businesswoman being like catty, is because during that time we had to be, because it was just felt like there could only be one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's changing now, thank goodness. And we're realizing our mistakes. But yeah, it's just something that's kind of been ingrained in us. And so it's kind of hard to shake off.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from both of these effects there is that at the very end, Sam embraced the fact that life was gray, life was messy. And I think that ultimately gives hope, even though you don't see her kind of embrace whatever it is. She's just going to go to Australia. And, granted, that's going to be horribly difficult because it takes a lot of money to get there. But, figuring that out along the way is going to be tough. But ultimately, it's, I think, making that choice to just say, oh, you know what, just whatever. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, that's so scary. She's willing to go into she's willing to go into the phase of being out of control.
Yeah. Because
when you go on trips like that, like, you don't know where your next meal is going to be and that kind of stuff. Also, too, Australia is, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm listening to a lot of murder podcasts, but there's a lot of like hitchhikers like disappearing and being murdered in the Australian outback. So yeah, I'd rather just stay in Sydney.
Well, Sydney is one of the cleanest cities that I've ever been in. Like, it was clean.
Back in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, that was 2004. So.
Yeah, almost.
15 years ago. Oh my goodness. And I feel old again.
Sorry. I just had to point it out though, because time changes things.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right.
Okay.
A lot has happened since that point.
That is true. You used to have a really long goatee.
I know.
Oh, brother. Okay, maybe one day we'll show that picture to you guys.
I also used to, back in 2004, I was very much the next thing that you were going to be talking about.
Oh my gosh. That was very brave of you to admit, Miguel.
Yes.
All right. So moving on to how it's kind of weird that we honor virginity, and I know the whole virgin thing is very much a trope in the horror genre, which I think is why they chose it to be a main storyline, because it's kind of easy. Maybe that's why I'm kind of like, about the movie, is because I've seen it before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and like almost every other horror movie, like virginity is very important. And you see this a lot in a lot of horror movies. It's always like the virgin who is the one that has to be sacrificed, or it's the virgin who ends up outsmarting the killer because she's pure of heart or some bullshit. So, because let's be frank, it is kind of bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the reason why you see this in movies is because society has certain views in regards to virginity. And again, I'll just abbreviate it to BS now to try to keep it as PG-13 as we can. The views on virginity for boys and girls is completely like polar opposites. And it's
huge
stupid.
Double standard.
It is. It's a huge double standard. Makes absolutely no sense. I know that a lot of us millennial parents, the ones that are parents who can actually afford to be parents, we have recognized this and are trying to be a little bit more, they call it like the sex positive movement, but it's not like we're encouraging our kids to have sex. We're just kind of like taking away the
stigma of your own body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for example, girls like, oh, it's so important to keep your virginity and you must be pure of heart. And, there's this implied like moral superiority if a girl is a virgin, but being a virgin and having morals don't have to have anything to do with each other. You know what I mean? Like you can still be a virgin and be a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like the two just, I don't know. That's the thing that bothers me the most, I think, because just kind of thinking about my own life when I was a virgin, like I wasn't a bad kid, but I definitely wasn't the stereotypical virgin. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, stereotypical as in horror movie genre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Virgin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like very pure, very naive. Like what's French kissing?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Like good girl.
Exactly.
Trope.
Yeah. I didn't fit the good girl trope. And then for boys, it's like the exact opposite. It's like, so what do you mean you haven't had sex? What do you mean you're still a virgin? Like, that's weird. Like, come on, guy, get yourself some V. Is that appropriate to say? Can I say that? I was going to say something else, but I decided not to. Trying to keep it okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was 22 by the time, I lost my V card.
Yeah.
Virginity card.
Yes, I know what a V card is. Yes. But like with boys, it's like there's something weird if you don't lose your virginity like in high school.
I know. And that was one of the things that people were like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? You're this old and you haven't done anything? Like, no.
But it's not the same for girls. They'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so great. You're 35 and you're still a virgin? Good for you. It's so backwards and just totally weird and not helpful for anybody.
Yeah.
At all. And like, I kind of get that with Sam. Like, you don't feel like, we come to find out that like, probably just due to her circumstances with her being sick, that's probably the reason why that she's still a virgin, because the person that she was in love with, like, just due to circumstances, like, it just wasn't feasible.
Yeah.
But also too, sex doesn't necessarily have to, be the main focal point of somebody's relationship. Like, you can still be deeply in love with somebody and not necessarily have sex with them all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway. All right. So did you feel pressured at all to remain a virgin?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in that I was studying to become a youth minister, and, I grew up in the church, and I grew up, kind of like being that good Christian boy, because good Christian boys don't, go around with any girl that would do that before marriage. And I wasn't married yet, so, obviously I should still be a virgin. On the other hand, the whole society at large is telling me, oh, you're a man, you haven't had sex yet? What's wrong with you? Mm-hmm. And that still prevails within the church, within, the Christian college that I went to, within, like just guys in general, just looking at me like, what's wrong with you? How come you haven't done this yet? And, they kind of, understand that you're still going to, masturbate, but, you're not, that you got to control it and make sure that, you don't do it as often as as is normally healthy. See, the reason why I say that is because I have no idea what's healthy and what's not, because we never talked about it.
Yeah. Like it was just not something that you talked about.
Yeah. Unless you were like working for a Christian like an organization that pulls aside all the boys and says, try not to do this while you're here.
But that's still just weird. Anyway, for me, I felt pressure to remain a virgin, and save it till marriage, mainly because I grew up Catholic, and I grew up Catholic in the 90s and early 2000s. And so the whole promise ring thing, and like that was really big at that point in time. And I really felt pressure on my mom, or like from my mom, to not do anything, but I think it's because she saw what happened with my older sisters, and she was just trying to protect me.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
By the way, I still have my True Love Waits Bible somewhere.
Why?
Because it was like one of my it was like my teenager Bible, because it's like colorful and it has like a shiny, like holographic like cover.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway. But yeah, I definitely felt pressured to not have sex, mainly from my family, just because of, what my sisters had gone through. But again, like besides the whole don't have sex, there wasn't any talk about anything else. Like I had to learn about sex ed on my own. Luckily I had a friend whose mom was a nurse who was really good about making sure that her girls like kind of demystified sex. I think that's part of the problem. Growing up, they like held this like mystery curtain about sex.
Yeah.
And like we couldn't see like what was behind the curtain. You could only see it like once you're married. But like she'd made sure there wasn't really that curtain. Of course, she didn't like tell them go out and have sex, but she just demystified it and like explained it. And so luckily I did, even though I did learn some stuff from my friend, she did get it from a good source. Mm-hmm. And not like from porn or anything like that.
Well, I have a hypothesis that one of the reasons why a lot of cults kind of branch off from Christianity is because of that. They kind of have that veil, over like they have mystified sex. And so it's a good way to, control people is by like having some of those strong veils in people's lives, because sex is a main driver for, humanity. It's part of our instincts as animals on this planet.
And listening to the podcast called Cults that I'm listening to, all of the cults either like are overly sexual, like they promote that you should have sex all the time with multiple people, yada, yada, yada. Or they're like, you cannot have sex, period. No masturbating, nothing. Don't even think about kissing people. So it's like, it's always the extremes, and which is, again, not healthy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to move along. Thank goodness times are changing. Because like I said, us as millennials, I think we've realized the harmful effects of those two extremes when it comes to sex. That now we're trying to find like a healthy middle, just like everything else, Mm-hmm. Just like, food. You can think about food the same way,
We're embracing the gray.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And also too, you've seen that horror movies don't really focus too much on the virginity trope anymore. They've kind of branched off and moved on to other types of female characters as well too, which is good. So how have you seen the recent movies differ, like the recent horror movies differ from the past horror movies?
I think recent ones focus more on mothers as a trope. Mm-hmm. I think parenthood is, ultimately it's part of that mystifying veil for us as millennials. And for those of us who are going to be consuming movies more is, trying to figure out how to have some semblance of control in this reality as parents, as young adults, as adults as a whole. That, I think that's why a lot of horror movies now kind of focus on that. I know, like, I was terrified the day after we brought Peter home.
Oh, I know you were.
Like, I had a break. I was bawling to my mom. My mom was there.
You left me home alone with Peter for hours.
It was an hour and a half. We were grocery shopping.
It was 3 hours.
It was not 3 hours.
Okay, I know it wasn't 3 hours, but it seemed like a long ass time for somebody who had just popped out a kid.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm a little bitter about it still. Sorry.
Yes, I know. But it's terrifying for people. Parenthood is terrifying, and it's difficult. And I think this is why Hereditary was so disturbing. And I think this is why watching something like Satanic Panic helped to bring me back from, okay, I can watch a horror movie now instead of, worrying about naked old people.
Well, yeah, because there's a little bit more of a comedy aspect to this as well, too.
By the way, there's naked old people in Satanic Panic as well.
Yeah, there's lots of naked old people everywhere now.
That's another thing for
also
horror movies now. There's naked old people in it.
I don't know if you guys know this, but most of us will become naked old people.
We're not going to be
scary.
nudists.
No, we're not going to be nudists, but I'm saying we're going to be naked and old at some point in time.
Yes.
And we shouldn't be scared of it because it's going to be us.
Yeah.
Guys, growing old is nothing to be scared. Like, you shouldn't be scared about growing old.
But a massive satanic orgy? You should be afraid of that.
Be very afraid of that. But don't be afraid of yourself as a naked old person.
Well, that's part of this. I think owning your body, and that's, you were talking
definitely.
about sexual positivity. So that's, it's owning your body, owning your sexuality, as we talked about last week with the perfection, is owning that, owning your own sexuality.
All right. So I think we should mention our saints and wrap this baby up.
All right. I'm going to go with Saint Judy. I really think that her kind of stepping out and taking control of her own situation. Like, I'm not going to be sacrificed so that a demon lord can be born out of me, out of my womb. So I'm just going to, have sex with the first guy who comes along and make sure that I'm not a virgin anymore. Not only that, is going against her mother's will and just, really helping Sam out in this point where she's like, I don't know you from Adam. I'm just going to, help you out despite the fact that, we only just met because you killed the two people who were about to kill me accidentally.
Yep. Well, that's how friendship is formed.
Yeah. You killed the people who were about to kill me accidentally.
Yep.
Let's be friends.
Let's be friends.
So I think that's her major miracles is, taking control of her life and helping Sam out.
Yeah. So my saint is going to be all Sam's. And I'm a little jealous about the fact that they have some weird secret pact of Sam's that us Kathys don't have.
Well, I think that all Catherines should have that, whether they're Katie or Kate or Kathy or whatever they decide to shorten their name to.
Us Kathys, though, have a weird bad rap because people think of either the Kathy comic, which is a love-hate thing for some people. And then also, too, a lot of the times Kathys are seen as bitchy bosses for some reason. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, it's not as bad as Karen.
That's true. That's coming. That's a new development.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to bless and give sainthood to Sam's because they somehow managed to convince each other that there's some weird pact that they got to help each other out. And that's how Sam gets out of this.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. So if you have a saint for this show, or if you have any other comments, questions, or something that we should watch, let us know. Tell them how they can let us know.
All right. But before you let us know, I want you to go ahead and give us a 5-star review and subscribe to our podcast before you leave your podcast app, and then go ahead and try to find us. You can find us at Facebook at Patron Saints of Pulp Culture, also on Instagram with that same handle. And then also our website is
www.patronsaintsofpopculture.org.
All right.
Check out the fantastic Saints gallery that we have there now. We have quite a few, and I actually really like this last one. It's one of my favorite love to hate characters, as we've talked about Quentin in the past from The Magicians. I both love and hate Quentin. So check those out and let us know. So with all that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.